For this installment of Machete Order, we'll be discussing some scenes that involve sexual violence. The timestamps of when this part of the discussion occurs is in the description of this episode, so listeners can skip ahead if they prefer. If you or someone you know is in a sexually abusive relationship, go to rainn.org, that's RAINN.org, or call 1-800-656-4673. Help is available. You're never stuck. And now, on to the show.
I feel looser.
I feel this too.
Yeah.
Well, for those who are still with us, we felt like we were a little too tight during session 4, so...
I'm sorry for that episode.
Don't apologize for it. It wasn't that bad. It was fine.
If they're back, then it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, right?
I did, when I was listening back to the episode, I realized your chair was squeaking the entire time. And I got so, okay, here's a story. I got so annoyed about it that the next day I came to the studio and took that entire chair apart.
Wow.
And got some WD-40. I felt very handy. And I fixed the chair. Now it doesn't move around.
I'm moving in it right now. Can't hear a thing.
Doesn't squeak.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. I had no idea you were that mechanically savvy. I mean, obviously you're very...
It was 4 screws. And I was like, I'll just spray this everywhere. And then hopefully it'll work.
All right. Well, so far so good. Ross is back. Hey, Ross.
Yeah. I actually was just really taking a couple shots of tequila to get loose. That's where I was. No, I'm joking.
Gotta loosen up the
No,
gears.
why don't you take one?
No, I should actually.
Yeah, go.
Go get one.
We need to all be on the same level.
Yeah. Get on our level.
See what I can do.
All right. It's up to you. It's up to you. Not going to pressure you.
Yeah, we're not doing peer pressure. Unless you want to.
Hold on a second.
Yeah. We were doing peer pressure.
Yeah.
Totally doing peer pressure.
Anyways, I just took a shot of mezcal and I am feeling nice.
Attaboy.
Nice.
Welcome to Machete Order, a podcast about the best TV shows of all time, or at least some of them. I'm S.J. Petteruti.
I'm Maxine Philivong. Each season, we're joined by a special guest host.
2 of us will have seen the show before.
And 1 hasn't.
This season, we're talking about The Sopranos.
Let's just not overplay our hand, because if she finds out we're powerless, we're fucked.
This is probably the most intense episode that we're going to have in terms of the violence, and especially like the violence against women.
Yeah.
So sorry that we didn't give you enough of a heads up going into it.
Ashley texted me after and said, I did end up just skipping through the rape scene, but I would like to talk about the use of rape in media.
Yeah, let's definitely dive into that.
Yeah.
I also think that I was very proud of myself for saying something to Max. I watched it and was like, whoa, this is intense. This is not how I would shoot this in 2024. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was gratuitous, unnecessary. I thought Lorraine Bracco did a great job in it, but it is not what you need to be showing now. And even the scene with Tracy. I mean, I didn't tell you about that one, but
the one with Tracy, I don't know. In general, I do not think rape scenes need to be shown in media. This one in particular was way too violent for what they needed.
Yeah.
Her injuries after were really like gruesome. And I had to skip through a lot of that too.
Oh, interesting.
This has been hard watching The Sopranos because I have a lot of empathy pain. So when I see violence or bruising or even someone getting shot on camera, I usually have to skip through it because I can feel it happening to me so intensely. So I have been skipping through some parts, like the super violent parts. Luckily for some scenes where someone gets shot, it looks so dramatized.
So
like
poorly edited.
Yeah, it's like poorly edited that it looks fake. But for Melfi's injuries, I had to skip through a lot of that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to change the discussion, but I do know what happens. You know, I like skimmed through it. I just didn't watch it.
Yeah. Hard to watch her walk out to the car. You knew something's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
You could feel it.
It caught me by surprise when that happened. But I think that it's a very different type of show because of when it was made. And it's a lot more violent than I think it needs to be to get the point across. You don't need to ever actually see any of these scenes to understand the context. And later on in the last couple of seasons, I think they do a much more tasteful way of executing the violence that they need to execute to move the story along.
Do you think that was partly an HBO thing at the time to contrast against broadcast television?
I think that's a great point.
That's what I was going to say too. Do you think it was just like a sign of the times and HBO had the freedom to do it, so they wanted to flex their freedom.
I think that's exactly what it was, because this was the first real scripted TV show that was not on a network TV channel. And they could swear, and they could show violence, they could show, topless people, and all of those things were pushing the envelope. And I think that was one of the reasons that David Chase was drawn to doing this show on HBO, and he wouldn't have done it if it was on NBC. And this was really a groundbreaking show in that way. So, if you were to give a pass for why this type of violence was shown on camera, I think that's the most business-oriented explanation. It doesn't still make it right. And I think that there's something important about artists and the creative liberties that you take with either the licensing of what you can show or the technology that allows you to depict certain types of scenes. And when filmmakers go overboard with the liberties that are given to them or the new technology that's given to them, you often notice it later on. A poorly done space story, like the early Star Wars, the original cuts of Star Wars, if you were to watch them now, they would look very campy and weird. But you look at The Wizard of Oz, which was made almost 100 years ago, and because they were just so clever and crafty and worked inside the lines of what they had, when the house falls down, there's that iconic shot of the house spinning down after the tornado. It still looks good, and it holds up. And I think a lot of their special effects hold up 100 years later. So,
yeah, just back to Chase and the times. I mean, it's almost the analog today is clickbait, right? And just the gratuitous headlines. You're putting the thing in, you're putting the topic in the headline that really isn't important to the story, but it'll get clicks. I think to a degree, Chase was kind of taking advantage of what was going on, right? Again, with the contrast to broadcast TV, he knew it would elicit views. He knew it would bring people in, but you have a moral responsibility as a creator at the same time, right?
And you would never see something like that now.
Yeah, no way.
No.
They could never get away with that.
We've gone a long way in terms of what we are used to, and we've been desensitized as an audience where, seeing somebody topless isn't a big deal, and hearing a swear word is not a big deal. I mean, I'm pretty sure they put those on the Oscars now.
Yeah.
But we also have, I think, made important steps forward in women's rights and knowing that the entire world doesn't look through the lens of a straight white male, and you have better voices now telling stories.
Yeah. I think also with online presence, you can be more vocal and get people or the writer's room attention more easily.
Much more,
so,
yeah.
There's an episode of 13 Reasons Why where the main character, I think her name was like Hannah or something, she kills herself on camera. And it was so triggering that after a bunch of people posted online, they just took it off.
Yeah.
And there's a content warning, and they just took that entire scene out after it was released on Netflix. So I feel like, I don't know, if The Sopranos were happening today, do you think they would have cut that scene out?
I think they would have filmed it differently. I think they would have probably not shown it in the way that they did. And you could have done it. I actually thought about, like, how would I have done this? Because it is an important part of the Melfi and Tony relationship. And you see it happening in that episode where she completely changes her opinion about whether or not he needs to go see a specialist, and she needs to move him on as a patient. But I would have probably just shown the initial grab, and then that's it. And then you show afterwards, you don't even have to show physical bruising on her.
No.
Because she's such a good actress, she could have played so that you knew something had happened.
The way she's grabbing herself too, something about that. I don't know. When I skimmed over it, I saw like the last part of it. And the way she's grabbing herself too, I don't think would have been shown.
No.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have done any of that.
Yeah.
One aspect I think they did get right, we went through this with the Me Too movement, right, is her husband's response to it, right? And the blame game. And I'm not saying this is the case every time, one of these things happens or it's reported, but it still happens enough, right? Where the white male in this situation is basically saying it's your fault for being in that situation. I've told you before to call security to walk you down to your car, and just, what an insult to say something like that, right? In that situation and in general to her. And
sorry.
Yeah, we haven't fully moved beyond that, right? As a society, that blame game is still happening when women report things like that.
And for much of The Sopranos, it's a lesson of what not to do. And we see that a lot throughout the story. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's important. That's one of the reasons why people still enjoy watching it and why we're talking about it today, is that they do give you a lot of examples of how to handle a situation in the wrong way. And hopefully we can all learn from that and do things differently, do things better.
Should we save the rest of this discussion for...
Yeah, so that's our show.
That's the whole show.
We said we were going to be looser.
Yeah.
This is a good example of how to not do that. Yeah. But no, I mean, these are important things to talk about. And I think that it certainly does change the way you have to watch the show. And that's exactly why we actually have this podcast, because you don't want to just run headlong into something that could be potentially very distracting, very traumatizing, very triggering for you, and something that probably would be done differently today.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think just in general, it's really important to look at older TV shows like The Sopranos and put it in today's context as we're doing, right? How do these things age, right? Do they age well? Do they age poorly? Why is that the case? What's changed in society? What's shifted in our culture? So these are important combos.
And it's funny because I was thinking about what's the theme of these 3 episodes. So just to catch people up, it was the last installment of Machete Order, which was session 4. We were talking about and viewing season 2, episode 13, the finale, Funhouse. And then we jumped into season 3 at episode 4, Employee of the Month. And then we watched episode 6 of season 3, University. And I always like to try to think about what was the theme of the 3 episodes that we just watched. And, Ross, I think as much as we highlight how things have changed, these 3 episodes for me were a lot about how the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of repetition at the end of these shows. We'll get into University and how there was that last scene back in the Bada Bing, and George is given the same spiel about how you get onto the stage, how you get into the VIP room that he had given Tracy. And there's a lot of that looping, I think, that we saw in this installment of Machete Order.
Mm-hmm. I do want to hear more about why you chose University. I think for me so far, I kind of think I didn't need to see that episode.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I do feel strongly about that episode. We chose it because I think it's important to really hate Ralphie.
Yeah. I'm surprised Ralphie didn't get killed. I had it in my notes. I was like, because it's kind of obvious that he's going to be killed, but then nothing really happens. They just kind of let him get away.
Yeah, I mean, to me, he's like Richie 2.0. He's more violent. He's more sociopathic. As great as David Pavel was playing that role, Joe Pantalineo and that character of Ralphie, it's just like, okay, let's take him and make him even more.
Yeah.
Are you fucking out of your mind laying your hands on me? I'm a made guy.
Oh, a made guy. Yeah. I mean, he has a brazenness about him that you really don't see in any other character in The Sopranos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I want to clarify something too. I said last week, I like the Ralphie character. Let's just make sure this is put into the right context.
You love all the sociopaths.
I was going to say, Richie, Ralphie, these are all despicable characters and human beings, right? In the sense that of what they've done. I think though that,
and you love them,
and yet I love the actor, and that's not to mean there's no condoning of anything. Just to make sure that's clear. These 2 actors, they're just they lean into those sociopathic tendencies so well as act. It's just it's mesmerizing. As terrible as much as you hate Ralphie, it's mesmerizing to watch him work his way through that back room and just piss off every person imaginable.
It's like the writer said, what is the worst possible person we
right
can write?
Yeah.
And they just went to town with Ralphie.
And that's why I think University was chosen is because there's not really another episode that you're going to see Ralphie do so much damage and be so violent and so despicable. So that was one reason.
Yeah. Is this the first time he shows up? Is this why? No.
He was in, I think he pops up first in episode 2, which we should talk about a little bit. We'll get into that as we transition from Funhouse into season 3, because obviously there's a major character who's missing.
Right. That's my first question.
Okay, well, before we get into and move on, I also want to just say, I think University is actually a really good episode.
Okay.
And I thought it was a really, really interesting commentary on women. And, one of the things about it is you've got 3 important female characters, I think, during that episode. You've got Tracy, obviously the stripper who's Ralphie's girlfriend. You've got Meadow. There's a lot about Meadow. And then you've got Caitlin, her roommate. all three of them being the same age, but having very different types of life experiences. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a very, very well told story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't catch Tracy being 20 years old until,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't really think about that's pretty much how old Meadow is at this point. She's probably 19.
She's like 18.
Yeah, 18 or 19.
Yeah.
Let's also reserve some space to do a little television hate for Noah, my least liked character of all the Sopranos.
It's pretty stone
cold.
My
God.
Breaking up with her in the middle of studying.
The restraining order against a student in your dorm?
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's also, we should wait to have this full discussion, but, rich kid in college that you meet. Yeah, that's stereotypical.
Yeah.
At Columbia?
Son of a lawyer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's insufferable.
Come on, Noah.
Every scene with him is terrible.
Yeah. That was such a weird,
his
calculated.
Stupid fucking glasses.
The breakup, too. I mean, that was.
Yeah.
Oh, in the library?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cold.
It's cold. What's the worst way you've broken up with someone?
I've only dated 2 people in my life, so I don't have any good stories.
Well,
only 2?
You have a good story.
SJ's a little different.
No, I mean, yeah. But Ross, there's a good breakup story for you. I don't know if you want to share it on the pod, but.
Oh, us going up to Massachusetts? Yeah. We'll save that for later.
It's a good one. We'll tell you offline.
That was our Sopranos moment.
I was very proud of Ross standing up for himself, and I was right behind him.
Good job, Ross. I don't know what happened yet, but you'll tell me eventually.
Stood up. I'll stand up. Not like Beansy. You're no Beansy, Ross.
Poor Beansy.
I've say that I've been responsible for more of the breakups, but the more important, devastating, emotionally breakups have happened to me.
Yeah, that's how it works. When you break up with someone, it doesn't really affect you.
That's fair.
When someone breaks up with you, fucking devastating.
Yeah. A referendum on your entire person.
Yeah.
I was out once with somebody and recognized that it was the end. And I was a little bit calculated the way that Noah was. Mm-hmm. In the just it's happening here. I'm going to be stone cold about it. And then that's it.
Yeah.
I'd say that was probably the cruelest. But, measure twice, cut once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the worst way someone's broken up with you? Ross, you don't.
Oh, I have a good one. It wasn't, we weren't actually dating, but we were kind of seeing each other.
Those are the worst ones.
In college. And shout out Andrea, if you're listening to this. Her friend at the time was Minkus from Boy Meets World, the actor. I forget the actor's real name. Sorry, Minkus. And he had been coming to visit JMU while we were seeing each other. And she kept talking about Minkus. I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. And then finally I got the notice one day that I was being dropped for Minkus, and they ended up getting married.
No.
Good for them.
I got dumped for Minkus. How about that?
That's like the best dump story of all time. What about you, Max?
The worst way I've ever gotten dumped. I get dumped from situationships frequently.
Line of the pod, though.
What?
Situationships. I've never heard that
Should
before.
I be the boomer and be like, what is that? But I know what a situationship is.
You know what a situationship is?
Yeah.
Ross, you don't know what a situationship is?
I'm sorry, no, I've never heard that term.
It's like when you're dating someone, but not actually dating someone, but it's like, you don't want anything serious, but it's way too emotionally intense for it to be serious, but you're not dating.
Gotcha.
You use the labeling that we tend to put on very ambiguous things like a relationship to hide away from the relationship.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so good to know. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's an effective technique.
It is. Yeah.
I've lived through a couple of SJ's breakup weekends. So if
It
you
only
want to trade
lasts a
stories
weekend?
there, SJ, I've got some good dirt on
No,
you.
it can last a lot longer than a weekend. But the weekend is like sometimes just an excuse to go out and get lit up. More stories.
You hit
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably need to start from the beginning.
We're a half hour into
We're a half hour in. Good Lord. Okay.
God, we're never going to get through this episode.
We wanted to be looser.
Okay.
A lot of
This
editing.
is such a heavy episode to be loose to.
This is, well, I think this is the right one to be loose to.
Okay.
Well, let's wind the clock a little bit and actually get back to the sequential order that we at least watched these episodes in. And let's talk about the end of season 2, Funhouse.
Yes. It was a Fever Dream episode. You warned me about this.
Fever Dreams.
You warned me about this the first session, I think. These episodes were controversial. Yes, I remember you saying that.
The dream device itself, I think, is the controversial thing that we were alluding to. And I think this is a good time in the pod to actually talk about the use of dreams by The Sopranos.
You took my take. Snatched it right from me.
Well, give us your take. I'm just raising the issue, not rehearsed.
Cross that up. All I want to talk about is dreams and television and movies and how much I hate them.
Well, that's why we have the pod, Ross.
Well, I hate them in general, with exception. But the reason I hate them is often TV shows and movies use dreams as a lazy route to kind of surprise the audience, right? You know, how often have you watched something where the dream very much feels like a continuation of the current story, only then there's some drop of the shoe which triggers that, oh, it's a dream. And you're like, oh, you know, mentally I was going down this one route with where the show was going, but no, it's not true, right?
Yeah.
And that to me is lazy, you know?
Yeah, because you're tugging at the audience's emotions, and then you're pulling it back from them, being like, it actually wasn't real.
Right, 100%. Now, I think The Sopranos does a better job with it. They have I think they show you that it's a dream earlier, for the most part, you know, so you know that and you're not surprised. I do think The Sopranos uses dreams too much, though, in general.
This is the first time I'm seeing it.
Oh, it happens a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in this episode, I mean, how much of it,
It's like
minute-wise, is
90%.
a dream?
Yeah.
It felt like, you know.
There's a lot of it in the dream. I mean, there was the dream that Melfi had about Tony going through the windshield that we'd seen.
Oh, that's true.
Right. And there's been probably 2 or 3 other dream sequences.
Isabella?
Isabella,
Yeah.
you could count as a dream. But I do think that this episode, Funhouse, is where the dream sequences and that device is used the most effectively. Because, Ross, to your point, you know it's a dream just going into it, but then they tell a very important part of the story, which is just how Tony comes to realize that something's not right with him and his friend.
Yeah. I still thought it was too much, to be honest, in the episode.
Yeah.
But I appreciate what you're saying, and I do agree. Like, especially the scene with the fish talking as if it were pussy. I mean, that's great.
It's a great scene. It's a great line. How'd you lose all that weight? Swimming. It's the best exercise. Works every muscle group. It's great.
That's great.
Okay. I think the dream sequence is when, actually, no. Yeah, the dream sequence is where my questions start. So in the beginning of the dream sequence, he goes up to everyone sitting on the bench and they talk about how Tony has a diagnosis. He only has until September 5th to live. Is that something really happened or something he's anxious about or he's just dreaming?
He's just dreaming.
Okay.
It's not. I think that's a little bit of them trying to lead you into an emotional response as an audience that you don't need to have.
Yeah.
Hey, Tone, what if the doctors are wrong?
It was also the first time that they actually addressed the Patsy Philly Parisi situation where they actually talk about like, wait, this guy was killed earlier. Now he's back. They actually like addressed that head on.
Who that was.
Yeah, he was in.
Was?
Well, okay, so Patsy Parisi is who's still alive and who's going to be in Tony's crew going forward. Phil Parisi was in a very quick scene at the beginning of season 2 where he was picking up Gigi from the airport, who is one of the other mid-level underbosses. He's in a lot of scenes in the background, kind of like Furio. And Gigi kills him at the end of the drive when they get back to his house. It happened. He shoots him in the head, and then he gets out of the car and runs away. And it was just kind of, he was part of Junior's crew, and it was a scene that was giving you a little bit of context that Tony is exacting his vengeance against the people who just tried to have him killed.
Okay, I don't remember the scene. I don't know if I watched the scene.
You might not have, and it's not a super critical part of the story to understand. The backstory about it is that he was such a compelling actor. I think I actually already explained this on the pod. But
Yeah. There's like one exception they had for this.
Oh, is this the person that has the 2 characters?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because David Chase and everybody enjoyed him so much that they brought him back and they invented this twin. Yep, this is the guy.
Okay.
Yeah. That's about as important as you need to understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of this episode is Tony being guilty too, or feeling guilty, feeling some remorse for anyone that shows up in the dream sequences. With him, there's that scene where he is looking through the binoculars
Yeah.
and he's looking towards him. I think it's him, and
Yep.
then someone else he's playing cards with. And
That's
I couldn't.
Polly.
Polly.
Yeah.
Okay, and then he shoots Polly.
Yeah.
I think his dreams are telling him that he feels a little guilty for everything he's done.
In this particular case, he has a complicated relationship with Polly. And Polly Walnuts, you don't get to see a ton of him. You will as we get more into the latter half of the show now. He's one of the steadies on the show. It's Tony Sirico is the actor who played him, legendary Italian mob type of actor. I think we've talked about him as well, just about how he was the one that we were talking about has like the rap sheet that he did in real life of all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
That's Uncle Polly.
Okay. Yeah.
That's Uncle Polly. He's one of the steadies.
They were in Atlantic City, right?
Yeah, they're on the boardwalk in Atlanta.
Filming
In
that?
the
Okay.
bar, right? Have you all been to Atlantic City in the winter?
I have.
No, I haven't.
That is one distressed place in the winter.
It
Now
is
where
a
you want
ghost
to
town.
really adds to the dream sequence. I was
It is.
flashback to sometimes at DC.
It's a great
in general.
vibe for the whole episode.
Yeah.
Is this like desolate, kind of abandoned. A lot of the scenes that happen here are these abandoned areas. Even though it's actually graduation, it definitely looks like they're shooting it in February.
Yeah.
So this is the device that we use so that Tony can understand that his friend Pussy, Sal, played brilliantly by Vincent Pastore, is actually a rat for the FBI, and they have to take him out onto the boat. And then we also have another plot going on with Meadow, who's graduating, and she's advancing on.
Yeah. Wait, okay. Rewinding all the way back to the beginning of the episode where Tony is at his mom's house with another person.
Yes.
Is that Tony has a second sister?
He does, yeah. He has
Okay.
a second sister.
Is that the first time we see her?
I think so.
I don't remember before that. Yeah, she's a bit character though.
Yeah, she's much more minor than
Okay.
Janice is going to be.
Okay. So she just shows up sometimes, then leaves.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if she was a bigger character and just haven't seen her yet.
Nope.
Okay.
So so Olivia has nowhere to go because Janice has left because she killed Richie. So she's back on the bus to Seattle. And yeah, Tony's sister has said that she can't live with them and Tony won't have her and Green Grove won't have her. So poor Olivia Soprano has nowhere to go.
So Tony just reaches into his pile of first-class tickets underneath his back row seat that he keeps on him at all times to get his mother out of town. I thought that was hysterical. He just lifts it up. There's just like 50 first-class tickets. Is it just like an evergreen first-class ticket?
Well, you got them from Davey.
Is that how tickets used to work?
Oh, yeah. You used to get a physical ticket.
I have no idea.
You can just use them anytime? Is that how it works?
It's like, oh, I'm going to fucking Seattle now.
I think it used to go up to the counter and you would exchange it for a flight that you would want to get onto.
Hysterical. Right in the city you want to go to on the ticket.
I mean, back in the day, you wouldn't even go through a metal detector to get onto an airplane.
I took a flight a couple weeks ago and I forgot how many people don't wear socks in the TSA line. They go through with flip-flops. That is disgusting. That is so gross. You know, people walk a TSA line every single day.
What's your take on people who take their shoes off on the airplane?
Disgusting. Have some
I feel
class.
like they're all Australian, right? Isn't that an Australian thing?
I like to do it.
You're a psychopath. You
that
belong
is-
in this TV show.
Yeah, you're Ralphie.
Look,
Arrest this man right now. Do not let him on the plane. That is disgusting.
my dogs need to breathe.
No.
It's all restricted air
Exactly.
anyway.
Wait, I was at the movies the other day, and this person next to me, one, was on her phone the entire time, but two, took her shoes and socks off next to me and just had her dogs out the entire movie. I was seeing Monkey Man. I couldn't focus for like 20 minutes on the movie.
But not up. They were just next to you.
No, they were up. It was like, you know, in the AMC, they have those recliner seats.
Yeah.
So we were like next to each other.
Her feet are like
yeah.
up on the...
Yeah, up on the recliner thing. You
Okay,
can't see
that's
this
a
on
little weird.
camera.
That's a little
but
weird.
That's psychological imbalance right there.
I'm not putting my feet up when I'm on the plane. I'm just...
Just
And I don't-
letting them breathe a little bit,
I
letting your
don't
dogs
take,
breathe.
I don't take the socks off. I get that. But
You realize how bad that smells for people, though.
it doesn't smell bad. My feet don't smell bad.
How do you know?
I don't have comment. I don't know.
People don't smell their own feet. Come on, you know
I
that.
don't think you could. I mean, listen, I'm not that stinky of a person.
You're not
Once again,
either.
there are people who disagree with this statement.
Hannah, write in right now.
Anyway,
All right.
she has a flight ticket.
She has a flight.
It's going to be a 4-hour podcast episode. So Liv has a first class ticket. This will come back to haunt Tony later on. The driver of this episode is definitely Tony getting food poisoning. But before he does, he's out at a nice Indian dinner with a couple of his colleagues. And this is where Pussy explains how this scam with the calling cards actually works.
What is a calling card? Okay.
Oh my God. The things we take for granted. Oh, this is why we're doing this. So back in the day on like a payphone, if you didn't want to actually have to put in all the quarters or call somebody collect, and calling someone collect meant that you were putting the charges of the call on the person that you were calling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a great commercial.
I used to call my parents from college all the time with that.
Calling
Do you
collect?
accept this call? They're like, all right.
Yeah.
I know who's.
And it's like 10 cents a minute or whatever it's going to be. Did you remember the We Had a Baby Eats a Boy commercial, Ross?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So it was a commercial about, I don't know, a calling card company. Might have been a cell phone commercial. Yeah. But it was about a guy who's calling collect. And when you would say, like, you want to call collect, they'd say, what's your name? And you would give your name before. So they would say, like, so-and-so. And they'd play the voice is calling you. Do you accept these charges? So the guy gets the prompt to tell his name. And he goes, we had a baby, eats a boy. And so the dad picks up the call. They're like, it's a collect call. Do you accept from we had a baby, eats a boy? And he goes, no. And he hangs up. And then the mom goes, who was that? He goes, it was Bob. They had a baby. It's a boy. Great commercial. All timer. We both still remember it like 20 years later.
Okay, you didn't answer the question.
What was the question?
What's a calling card?
Oh, what is a calling card? I should know this.
Russ.
No one knows.
You preload money onto it, and then you can just use it to call, right?
Yeah, you'd pay like $10 up front, and it would have a code on it. And
you would just tell the operator?
You would punch the code into the phone.
Oh, okay.
There was like a number that you would call, and then that number you would punch in your code, and then you would call the number that you want to call, and then it would just drain out. It would, it was like a debit card.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were big.
Yeah.
If you knew somebody internationally, you had to use one.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you were like maybe poor and you couldn't afford a phone line and a monthly payment, you'd buy them. So the scam
point,
is
right?
then what Pussy's explaining in the restaurant. He's explaining how they're ripping people off by buying the cards up front with a credit card that they're never going to pay, and then selling them before the collection company can actually turn off the cards.
Okay.
But it's the detail in which he tells this scam, which is what starts to first plant the memory in Tony's head that this guy may not actually be completely on our side. He might be wearing a wire. He's telling so much detail.
Yeah.
Right. It was just funny because in the moment I was like, oh, well, Pussy sounds pretty smart here.
Yeah,
pretty sophisticated.
I knew it was
He's like, good job, Pussy. You're doing a good job.
Yeah, you did a good job, Pussy.
Yeah, yeah. You're also seeing a little bit more Furio, right? He's the guy who's telling, that's a beautiful.
Yeah.
That guy is actually not Italian. He's from New Jersey.
Right.
Yeah.
The more you get to know him.
Yeah, that checks out.
The more you get to know him, the more I think that'll be entertaining and an interesting nugget.
It doesn't sound like a real accent. Did you think it did?
I think Italian accents are one of the hardest accents to do.
You do it.
As somebody who's pretty
Go
bad
ahead,
at it.
try.
What's the matter with you? See that you can't
You
do
sound
it
just like
without-
him. Yeah. Okay, Ross, you go.
Oh, God, I can't. You got me.
Stupid a fucking game.
Anyway, what am I gonna do with it? I already got one, and Mr. Williams here, he don't play, right?
Stupid a fucking game.
That's a great line that he has. I don't know if we're going to get to actually show you that scene where they're golfing, but it's a great Furio line.
Can we talk about the name Pussy for a second?
Yeah, sure.
His actual name is Sal, right?
Yeah.
His real name's Sal. It's such an aggressive nickname, isn't it?
It was a huge turnoff for me when I was first, like, when the Sopranos were on the air. I was like, there's a character whose name is Pussy, and there was Big Pussy and Little Pussy. There were two pussies.
There is?
Yeah.
Well, maybe I haven't met Little
I don't
Pussy?
think you really ever see Little Pussy.
Yeah. How
This
did he
is-
get that name? Do they ever explain it?
Don't know.
No, they never explain it.
What's the female equivalent of a nickname like that?
Hmm.
It's not Dick, because Richard, it's acceptable.
Something about Pussy, it's like a punch, you know? I don't know if there's any punchy female nicknames like that.
Assuming the female nickname would be about the male anatomy?
Could not.
Correct.
It doesn't have to
Inverse.
be, I guess.
It doesn't have to be, but yeah, that would be the idea. It'd be inversed.
Yeah, that'd be the mirror of it.
It'd be calling a woman penis, basically.
Yeah.
That's
Or it'd be a woman calling a guy penis.
yeah.
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 All
It
right.
doesn't,
Well,
have, it
I
doesn't
would-
have the same ring to it.
I would go in towards like I think you're going after the wrong organ. I think you have to go after the balls, like ball sack, gonad,
Ball sack's a good one.
ball sack.
That's
Yeah,
a good one. Yeah, I
there
like
you
it
go.
better.
There you go, women. Ball sack.
If you use that, tag us.
Yeah, start calling guys ball sacks. The guy's a ball sack.
New nickname
Like
just
we're onto
dropped.
something.
Yeah.
Watch, this will be the thing that goes viral on social. Salvatore Pompancero started out as a cat burglar, and that is how he earned the nickname Pussy.
Is that lore they show in the show?
That's on the
Oh, it's just his-
Wikipedia for Sopranos.
Okay.
So I don't know. But either way, that's his name. It's a weird type of thing to do. I think, again, this is at HBO that this show's on. So
Yeah,
why not
there you
push the
go.
envelope? Why not give the guy a nickname that kind of doesn't really make sense? But it's iconic. People loved the name. They loved the character. And they love Indian food, and then they love eating mussels after Indian food, which seems like a bad idea.
Insane thing to do.
Yeah, is that not just crazy?
Yeah,
You're watching it and you're just like, not in a million years.
yeah. So Tony getting food poisoning kind of makes a lot of sense.
That's on Tony.
Oh yeah,
That's on Tony.
it's a bad choice of different cuisine to mix together.
But also, how are they not full from the Indian food? They
Yeah.
give you big portions.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
These-
strange.
Yeah.
yeah. They're big guys. They're feeling good. They're living on largesse. He's giving Carmelo the coat. What are our feelings on? First of all, this is the first sex scene that we actually see between Carmela
I
and
wrote
Anthony.
that down. I didn't know if that was, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This is the first time they get a little frisky with it. Feelings on fur coats?
Not for me. Imagine me with a fur coat. Audience, look at me.
40 years ago, they were hot. Today, not so much.
Yeah. If someone's rocking a fur coat, it's like, wait, is that real? Like, what?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? This is
Carmela's just, she's a little pathetic. Let's be real here.
her moral
She could, be,
compass.
she could be so angry at Tony. Like, it could be the worst thing possible. And he can buy her anything and she just flips on a dime.
Yeah. I mean, I love Edie Falco. I think that she's the best actor in this entire show. Even just the scene where he gives her the fur coat and she goes from like disinterested, I'm paying my bills. It's like every woman has talked to her husband 100 times and she nails that. But then that whole oh my God moment where she jumps up because she's startled and then she repeats the line and you can just tell she's excited because she realizes what this is a gift that she wanted.
My shoot's growing a fucking beard.
Oh, Tony, will you let me work here, please?
Growing a beard or a merkin or something. Ah! It's fucking alive! It's alive!
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Tony, what did you do?
It's for you.
It's such brilliant acting. I mean, you forget it's acting and you see her do 5 emotions in a half second with the same 3 words.
Mm-hmm.
Love her. Speaking of which, we've been trying to get a couple of guests to come on to the show. And so far, nobody's returned our calls. But if any of the
wonder
cast
why.
members, I mean,
I feel
get
like
it.
AJ would come on, right? What's he doing?
Bobby, Robert Eiler, we've been trying to get a hold of him.
They have their own podcast. I just saw it.
Yeah.
We're competing with them.
That's what it is. We're competitors.
Hey,
Yeah.
man, the tide rises all ships. This thing that we can all eat.
It's a guy that plays AJ and the girl that plays Meadow.
Yeah.
The same podcast.
Call us back.
If you want to collab, call us back. Anyways,
Going
this is going to
way
be
over.
edited down.
Yeah.
But we are 45 minutes into this episode, and we have gone through 20 minutes of
All
the
right.
first episode.
What are some other things that we want to talk about with this scene or with this episode?
I think we can move towards the end, right? What happens to Pussy? If that's all right.
Yeah, I mean, the peak of this really whole season, I think, is the confrontation on the boat.
Mhm.
Tony wants an opinion on a boat. My God, could there be a more surefire sign that you're about to get whacked?
Not just one opinion. He's bringing his entire crew out there.
Yeah.
Do you think
True.
Pussy knew he was about to get whacked, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was one of the reasons he took a little shot.
Yeah.
For his sea legs. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a cold business to kill your best friend.
What do you think? When did you know? When did you know it was going to go down?
When Pussy was going to get killed.
Yeah.
as soon as that scene happened in the Indian restaurant, I was like, this guy's going to get caught. Or maybe actually, no, I take that back. I think it was Tony realizing or like having his dream epiphany that Pussy was a rat. And rats don't last very long in Sopranos.
No. Do you think it was important that they show the scene of him finding the wire in the bedroom?
Yes.
Wire.
Because the relationship was so strong and long, right? You really need some hard evidence, I think, in that case to kill your best friend.
Yeah. I think you're right. I don't think the audience would have bought it if he had just gone on his gut of the dream, telling him what they told him. You know, I mean, I'm a simpleton. I was looking at the scene of the talking fish and thinking, oh, okay, like this is going to happen. But when on the boat, did you realize that this is where they were going to do it?
I feel like as soon as Tony said, I want to go look at a boat, I knew it was going to happen. I mean, we've seen him in past episodes kill people on a boat before, or when they were walking down to the shoreline and he kills that guy. I think it's in like the first episode or something.
Yeah.
They love to kill on boats.
It's easy.
If you're on a boat, you're a goner.
Yeah.
How about, did you look at Sill's expression when he walked down the staircase and said, yeah, we'll go check out that boat? You know, that was the sign to Sill that he was a rat, right? I don't know if you caught the expression there, but he was basically, oh, okay, it's on.
When they go down the stairs of when they're in Pussy's house or when they go into the cabin?
Yes, at Pussy's house. When Tony comes down and says, yeah, let's actually go, because he was feeling ill.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good call.
Yep. The Frank Sinatra song that's playing while they're talking, I looked it up. Babbles, Bangles, and Buds is the name of the song. Just poetic, right? Sill and Polly are just staring there. Polly's face. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
He masters a sour/dour face. You have to watch. You have to listen to it to really feel it. But
I think you're right, though. It's great acting from all of them. But there's something also about the way that they shot it with the rocking on the boat and the creaking of the boat inside and outside. It's almost like a metronome.
I mean, they have the same creaking in Tony's dream sequence.
Yes. I'm glad you picked up on that.
Yeah. Because I thought it was going to be when you heard the creaking, that's when you knew it was a dream. But eventually it stopped. But I feel like Tony and the crew going onto the boat, it's like Tony's worst nightmare. So it almost felt like a dream, like having to kill your best friend.
Yeah.
And before they killed him, they all said, you were like a brother to me. So I didn't want to do it. So it was so impactful on them that it just felt like a nightmare. Their whole episode was a nightmare. Even when they started out in the Indian restaurant, Tony was saying that things were good right now, but he was still waiting for the shoe to drop.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that this is the first major kill that they've had to make for anybody inside of their own crew.
Yeah.
You know, Pussy was an inside guy. It was the four of them. And that was, you know, they all came up together like that. And so for him to flip on them was hard for them to all do. You don't want them to do it when you're watching it. They're having tequila shots and, you know, Pussy's still making jokes about his chiropractor down in wherever he was.
And then Pussy's like, don't do it in my head. Don't take out my eyes.
Yeah.
not in the face.
Yeah, not in the face.
Didn't really matter.
If you watch it back, they take out their guns ridiculously slowly. They're all stumbling over the guns. So I think they did that on purpose to show how much they were struggling with it.
Yeah. And I also loved just when Pussy's talking about that chiropractor and, you know, Tony just looks at me and is like, did she ever even exist?
Yeah.
And it felt like that was telling you so much about the relationship and what it had come to and how betrayed Tony felt. I'm kind of feeling for the guy.
Yeah.
You know, he's got to kill his best friend. That's hard. Then we see the other side of this story before we get out of this episode is Meadow and her graduation. Meadow Mariangela Soprano. It's quite the name. We also learned that Chris is going to get his button at the end of the episode.
Okay, what is a button?
Had a feeling you'd be asking that.
Yeah.
Ross, you want to answer what getting the button is?
Means he's getting made.
Yeah.
He's moving up?
He's going to be a made man. So I guess this is a good time to explain what a made man is, because we're not going to see that actual scene in machete order. But in the mafia, you have made guys and then you have sort of apprentices who are trying to get made. And once you've been made, theoretically, you know, you hear Ralphie talk about it in the graduation episode that we're going to get to. But, you know, once you are made, you have certain protections. You are guaranteed certain privileges. You aren't supposed to be able to be assassinated. You are entitled to start earning percentages of these different schemes that they've got going on. So that's really kind of like making partner in a law firm, is getting made in the mob.
Yep.
No, nothing to add, Russ.
I mean, You just saw Goodfellas. It doesn't always work out well to get made for everyone. But yeah, I think you still can get assassinated. You just need to get permission.
Well,
right?
Pussy was a made man, right?
Yeah. Well, once you flip and become a rat, like all bets are off. You've relinquished all titles.
Yeah.
Okay, and in the final scene after Tony gets arrested, they have this shot of an empty office.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
That was the Wibisticks stock scam that Christopher was running with the two guys that later tried to kill him. That was their kind of season 2 scam, was shorting these really shitty stocks.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it had been abandoned, and kind of in that theme of the more things change, the more they stay the same. You were seeing a lot of like the end looping in that last scene. I also thought that was a good scene because it's a montage. You don't see a lot of montages in The Sopranos. Usually they're in the beginning and the ends of the seasons. And you're seeing all these different antiquated looking cameras and camcorders and all this old technology just slowly getting panned across, almost like it was the end of that entire era, not just the end of the season. Yeah.
I was happy with this episode choice.
No, thank you. Yeah. This is one of the favorites. It's, you'll see it in the top 10 of episodes pretty often. Before we get out of here, I just want to also talk about and give a tribute to Tony's lawyer. That guy, I love him. It's just...
Well, what's so funny is that he's the optimist in the relationship, which it should be inversed, right? He should be the realist. Tony should be the optimist, you'd think.
He's always telling Tony not to worry about it. Don't worry about it. If these first class tickets are all they have, they got nothing. Yeah. he's I want that guy. I mean, that is a hype man. That's the guy that you want in your corner being like, dude, you've got this. You're going to be fine.
Yeah.
That's all of Trump's lawyers, I think.
Well, we learned an hour ago. Didn't quite happen like that. But okay, next episode you gave me Employee of the Month.
Yeah. Tony
is just off, right? So nothing became of the arrest last season?
No. He's gotten dismissed. He's living life as it comes. I think the most important thing before we get too far into the episode is that we learn that there's a character who's missing.
Yes. Liv is dead.
Proshka Livia.
Does that happen in the first episode of the season?
It happened in the second episode.
Okay.
So a little bit of real life backstory. Nancy Marchand, who played Olivia Soprano, she died at the end of season 2. So the last episode that she was actually in was the finale of season 2. And in season 3, they ended up doing some CGI and using another actor for that one scene at the beginning of episode 2. And then that episode 2 episode, which is named Proshka Livia, is an episode about Tony's mother passing away.
Do you think Liv would have died if the actor didn't die?
I don't know, because they brought back Janice to come back as a character because they felt like they needed this strong female family member antagonist. Right. And they said that they weren't planning on doing that, except when Nancy Marchand died, they felt like they were missing that character. But I kind of have to believe that you would want to have had that shown as part of Tony's whole psychotic issues to just give him that to grapple with.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe just Janice doesn't come back to the show in general.
Yeah. So.
Hard to say.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gave Aida Tortoro a reason to come back, though. Another important thing that we see here that's kind of in the background, but that is going to become a larger issue is the Esplanade announcement. It's on the television, and there's a scene where they're all talking about Ginny Sacks, and they're making all the fat jokes, and then Johnny Sacks comes in and is like, "Hey, you guys all got your head up your asses. All you ever do is talk about coups." And he turns on the television, and it's an announcement from Congressman Ronald Zellman that they are going to be renovating the Esplanade, the Jersey Esplanade, and it's going to be this multi-billion-dollar boondoggle. Boondoggle.
I like Boondoggle.
I like Boondoggle.
I like
too.
Boondoggle.
There we go. Ballsack and Boondoggle. The title of the episode. But this is going to become a big part of the scheme. The Esplanade. It's a thing. Congressman Zellman, played by Otter from Animal House, awesome actor named Peter Reichert. We'll be seeing more of them as things go on. But let's stick with the more important parts. I mean, we talked a lot about Employee of the Month already. I think we talked about we really hit on the main issue here. Yeah. In terms of the sexually violent rape scene. Again, that happens at minute 18 and it ends at minute 1935. In case you want to skip over it and you're watching this or you're listening to this and watching that episode for the first time. Obviously a hard scene. Obviously an important change in the relationship between Tony and Dr. Melfi.
Yeah. We were talking about this before, but I usually think rape scenes in television is unneeded for female characters. Usually a writer's room full of men, and they want to garner sympathy for a woman. Easiest way to do it, oh, she's raped. Or they want to have a moral dilemma happen. Oh, she gets raped. I think it's most of the time it's lazy writing. I don't think rape scenes should define a character, and usually that's what happens in male writers' rooms. But in this case, I think it was used to empower Melfi and test her moral compass with Tony.
Yeah.
And the rape scene doesn't define her as a character, but what defines her is she doesn't tell Tony outright what happened. Instead, she's a person that rose out of trauma and said no to being part of Tony's criminal happenings.
Yes.
You know?
Right.
That's what makes it, I think, such a good episode, despite the way that it handles the actual instigation of her situation, is it puts her in a situation to feel like she wants to leverage this criminal element that she has at her disposal, that she knows she can wield. And I feel like the entire audience wants us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I remember, when I was watching, I was like, can this guy just like get whacked already?
Yeah.
It'll be so easy. But I think she's unwilling to compromise her moral compass to be complicit in Tony's crime world.
To legitimize his choices and what he does.
Yeah, I was right there with you the whole time, just desperate for her to tell him, right? Don't you just want it so bad?
Yeah.
And then there's the powerful line, just no, when he asks her.
Cuts to black.
Yeah, it's black. I think the common trope with mafia, right, is that they solve problems that the police can't, right, in general.
Yep.
And it's just one of those cases, right? Criminal justice system fails. Who do you turn to? So it's just it's an interesting, it's not secondary, but it's a fallout story of the rape, right? Which is the mafia can handle what the police can't. Do you tap into it or not?
And that's the origin of the mafia. You know, the Italian mafia was originally created as a way of protecting the Italian immigrants that were coming into America. And it at first had a certain nobility about it, and it very quickly moved into criminal ways of making money. But, you know, going back to your point around the use of rape in stories, especially and let's be honest, I mean, at this time, especially in Hollywood, you had a overwhelmingly white male voice that was telling the stories for everybody. But I do think that even today, people tend to use that situation as a way to define a character or to invent conflict.
Yeah.
And we do the same thing with guns. I think that guns and murders is just a lazy way of creating tension and creating drama in a story, and raising stakes is literally putting one gun in front of the other. Instead, I like to try to gravitate towards stories that are more like a marriage story, where you have the tension and you have conflict and it feels violent, and yet there are no actual weapons being used. I think in general, we need more stories that don't rely upon those types of crutches and still can drive compelling narrative that people want to follow.
Yeah.
Don't use guns.
No, lazy. I think violence is like that is always an easy way out.
Yeah, sexual violence,
Yeah.
violent violence with guns. You don't need it to be able to tell a good story, and it's a lazy way of telling a story.
Right.
So,
Only thing worse than guns in television is dreams. Hate dreams. Don't show me a dream.
Amazing that you chose these 3 episodes to show me after we all just said hate dreams, hate sexual violence in TV shows.
Side note, has anyone, I mean, this carries over to personal life. Has anyone, I mean, I'm sure, of course, everyone's had this happen. Someone comes up, I had this crazy dream last night. I shut down immediately. Do you ever listen to people explaining their dreams? It's like when someone's giving me directions, I'm just like, oh boy, all right, I'm out. No thanks. Yeah, I got to deal with my own inner thoughts over here. I don't really need to hear and understand yours. Thank you.
People tell me their dreams pretty frequently. I do not care, but I love telling other people my dreams. Like, you will listen to
storytelling.
Me and my dreams. I don't give a shit about yours.
Listen to this podcast. I also thought that this was a good episode to discuss the brainwashing of Christianity and the scene where Janice is sitting there in the hospital. I mean, as dark as it is, the whole through line of Janice and the Russians and stealing the leg and having to go to a bowling alley to get it back for the Russian mob guys. And then having this religious conversion moment. It's just...
You never do anything to simplify my life.
I stole a woman's prosthetic leg, Tony. When did I get like this?
It added a good bit of levity while also still tying a parallel to, women having to have these confrontations.
Yeah. Yeah. As someone who grew up in a very Christian home, this hit really hard for me. I was like, I've heard my mom say that before.
Back to Seattle, Janice.
The man I love died. She talks about Richie as if he'd had a heart attack, and not that she had killed him.
She killed him.
Not as if she murdered him.
Till that time, I was functioning at a very high level. I think there's only one path for me. God. That's the line. I mean, that was just so funny to me. And that's going to be something, you're not going to see a ton of that in Machete Order, but Janice's religious moment is a very good bit of levity. I don't know if you'll get to see her born-again boyfriend who has narcolepsy, but he's a great character.
I thought this would just be like a one episode Janice thing.
It carries on for a bit.
No.
Yeah. So she has a born-again moment, and it's pretty fun to watch. But yeah, I mean, I think that we can get on to
okay. One more question about this episode before we move on. Chris and Jackie's son, are they working together? Is Jackie's son, or I guess it's Jackie Jr., right?
Yep, this is Jackie Jr. This is Jackie April's son, Rosalie April's son.
He's part of the mob?
He's one of those apprentice types that we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
He's getting his feet wet. He's going to college too. He's not quite sure what he wants. And this is important. Tony had told Jackie before he died that he would protect Jackie Jr. and he would make sure that he lives the right type of life. And we're going to see more of Jackie Jr. as we get into Machete Order. So don't worry.
Yeah, he seems like someone who's going to become an important character, at least to Meadow.
Yeah.
I think. Yep. I'm trying to remember who I saw in the last, in the finale of the show, like who her husband was at the end.
That was not Jackie. That was actually Patty Patrice's son.
Interesting.
Yeah. So she's, she gets around with a lot of the mob types. Yeah. But you're gonna see more of Meadow too, in the way that she perceives what her father does and what she's part of, this thing of ours, as they say. But before we get to that, we have to make sure that Meadow is single enough to be able to date these mob, these mafioso.
Yeah.
What am I looking for? I'm looking for the word mafioso heirs, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
University.
Oh, sorry. Well,
on my initial watch, I said this earlier, I didn't know whether or not this episode was important.
Yeah.
It felt like a filler episode to me.
So I'm not as strongly in the camp of being a fan of this episode as SJ. All right, here's my reason why. I like it. And the Ralphie part is important, as gruesome as it is. There's this thing in TV, though, especially with a show like The Sopranos with 86 episodes, where there's the good and the bad, right? Of getting deeper into storylines that you normally wouldn't, right, in a movie. Homeland was notorious for this, right? They went really deep. If you've ever seen it, they went really deep on family, and it made the show almost unwatchable for a period of time. They got feedback on that. They stopped showing the family. And I feel like at times this show does that, where I'm just like, I don't need everything on Meadow. I don't need the Meadow sex scene. I don't need all these interactions with the LA boyfriend. Yeah, just a little unnecessary for me. But I think the Ralphie part of this episode is so important that it's a must watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was a good episode just to show the different types of experiences people can have at the same time of life. And just looking at Tracy's storyline, who's one of the strippers of the Bada Bing and she's the guma of Ralphie. And then looking at Meadow and the entitlement that she has, and then looking at Caitlin and the emotional instability that she has. And, every one of these people have very different types of problems, and their problems are all equally as important to them.
Yeah. Caitlin has a awful case of OCD.
Mm-hmm. And you actually see her earlier in the season where she's having a great time and she's loving New York and she's very, very energetic. And then she really craters in this episode and is having a really hard time dealing with the realities of living in a big city.
Yeah. Especially with that scene where she sees like the homeless woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I thought she was going to kill herself after the scene.
Yeah.
Because she has such a huge reaction to it.
And you see Meadow have that same thought when she takes the knife the X-Acto knife off of the desk, which I don't know what kind of college student she is that she's got an X-Acto knife, unless she's an architect.
An art student?
Yeah.
I don't know. They never explain what their major is. Do we know what Meadow's major is?
Yeah, I think they do talk about it. She's in like the poli-sci camp. She's going to be a doctor for a while. They'll touch upon what she wants to do. It doesn't play a super critical role, except for at the end when she ultimately chooses to be a lawyer, which I think she talks about in the finale, which you've already seen, so no spoilers.
Meadow and Noah are the two most supportive, non-supportive people I think I've come across recently. Just cringy, right? Their interactions with the roommate. My goodness.
She's trying to they're taking her to the movies, but then they're trying to get rid of her, and they're
trying to get rid of her. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's letting her in his room to study, and then he's placing a restraining order on her.
Just take that girl to the hospital. I don't care what she says. She's obviously going through a mental episode.
Yeah.
Take that girl to the hospital. But yeah, I've never seen OCD depicted like that in television before. And they don't even say it out loud, To me, she didn't exhibit the signs of classic OCD where it's oh, I'm washing my hands all the time. She's like, I had to do this thing or else you would have died and I can see you dying.
Yeah.
And I can see you bloody or whatever. And that is the most classic real life sign of OCD, but that doesn't happen in movies or TV shows as often.
I wanted to bring this up earlier because I think that we talked about how this is a show that's written primarily by men, and yet they do a good deal of plumbing of the teenage females' emotional issues. And there's been a very long-running storyline of Meadow making comments about eating disorders or talking about how they're going to skip lunch and they're just going to drink something. How do you feel about the way that women's emotional issues, especially the teenage women's here that we're seeing, have been depicted on the show?
I don't think I heard a lot about Meadow's eating disorder.
She says it
in passing.
It's happening in passing, and I think now maybe that you've heard it, and maybe if you go back and watch more of season 1, you would hear more of it now. But it's actually something that my girlfriend brought up.
Yeah.
And I realized wow, she's right. Maybe she should be the one that's hosting the show.
Yeah.
But she brought it up, and once I heard it, I could hear it a lot. And it's not a plot point, but it's something that they'll say in passing. In fact, in the last session, we were talking about when Meadow and Hunter, her friend, were making those grilled cheeses and they were making a mess in the kitchen. And Hunter says to Meadow, just tell your parents that you have bulimia and they'll stop worrying about all of the other issues. Mm-hmm. And that type of thing has been present. Those kind of throwaway comments have been present since the beginning of the show.
Have you heard of an almond mom?
No.
An almond mom is a type of a mom, 50-year-old, who is still so engrossed in diet culture of the early 2000s. And, those 100-calorie snack packs or only having a handful of nuts for lunch. Mm-hmm. Do you think Meadow is just a product of diet culture that was going on in the early 2000s?
Wow, that's good. I think probably.
Yeah. So I don't know if she exactly has a classic eating disorder or if she's, again, just a product of what diet culture was like back then.
The way that they put these comments in her character, and the way that they're throwaway lines, it's like they don't consider these things to be serious issues. And I don't know if that was part of the 90s and the early 2000s diet culture of there's anorexia, but it's not a real thing. It's just, people trying to be super skinny and...
Yeah. I mean, there was a whole I think it was early 2010s. There was that whole pro-Anna movement online, which was, I think it happened on Tumblr, Twitter or something like that. But pro-Anna was pro-anorexia, right? And there would be people advocating for anorexia and not eating. And this is how you do it. This is how you get skinnier. Anyways, Meadow is a product of that, I think. Yeah. So it's still in the culture.
I thought we were going to keep it loose.
This session. Well, the context of the TV show, I don't know if we have exactly.
We had some heavy stuff, and we're making it heavier.
Seriously, this is the tightest episode of all time.
Oh yeah. This is an episode about getting dumped. You got Tracy getting dumped by Ralphie in a very brutal way. You
Ralphie
got Meadow getting dumped.
Jackie's widow's boyfriend, right?
Yes,
okay.
Now he is.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And there's that typical mob double standard of they're all out there, they're being brutal, having these VIP nights with the strippers. Ralphie's thinking that he's in Gladiator swinging around the chain. And then the next scene, they're having dinner with all their wives and they're complimenting how great the dessert is. And everybody's just making these jokes and,
Can we talk about how gross these VIP rooms are? I mean, do these exist still? That was like a group orgy in there. That was disgusting.
Yeah. I don't know where the inspiration was for that. I've never been in that type of situation. I don't think I'd want to be in that.
I would just feel so uncomfortable. I don't know.
Oh.
I wouldn't know what to do with myself. I would just like,
Yeah.
not that I'd be invited into those rooms.
Murder, blowjobs, lots of drinking.
This
Runs
whole
the gamut.
episode really takes place in the Bada Bing, and it's a lot of stripper. And it's like there's also like there's a very like specific '90s stripper porn star hot that feels really weird and looks really weird today. Like huge fake boobs, skinny, you know, talking about that pro-Anna kind of situation, straight iron, straight hair. It's like, it reminds me of what we were talking about earlier about like what does getting hotter actually mean?
Oh, yeah. Me and Nestor the other day, I was talking about how like this is the first summer in maybe like 5 or 6 years where I'm like actually single. So my goal for this summer is to like get hotter. But we were talking about what it means to get hotter. I don't think that I know what it would mean for myself. I think now it's just increasing my confidence in myself. But if I was to get hotter like back in the 90s, it would be get skinnier, get bigger boobs, get straighter hair.
Yeah, I thought a lot about that. Like, what does it mean to get hotter? Because, yeah, there's guys that I've remember looking at when I was younger being like, I wish I looked like him. Like when Leonardo DiCaprio came out with Titanic and he's doing the sketch and it's coming over his eyes. I'm like, yeah, that's what I need. But can you imagine if I had Leonardo DiCaprio hair? Like the Matt Damon haircut that was like the Goodwill Hunting haircut. That was what hot was. JTT, Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Like,
yeah, JTT.
But I clearly, this is not going to become
we can
JTT
straighten your hair. Next episode, we'll straighten SJ's hair.
Yeah, I've straightened my hair before. It won't go like that. No. I look like Tom Hanks when he did that, what was that movie that he did? Fuck.
We'll edit it.
The Da Vinci Code.
Oh, okay.
When Tom Hanks did the Da Vinci Code, that's what I look like when I've got long hair. It just looks nasty. It does not fit me.
I think getting hotter is just about buying more expensive moisturizer and cream to put on your face at night.
I've watched those TikToks.
I use face masks now.
Yeah.
Once a week.
And you think you're hotter now than you used to be?
Yeah, because I'm putting the tea time face mask on once a week, feeling the face glow.
Yeah. I will say, Ross went from being somebody who, when we were kids, was not catching the ladies. I mean, this is back in like 4th grade.
Hold on. Beep, beep, beep. Back it up. Hold on.
I was getting to a compliment for you. But go ahead.
No, I was just stopping you in your tracks there.
No, he went from, he went from being, Ross to my girlfriend saying, your hot friend Ross. Like Ross was my hot friend. Like
Maxine's like, what are you talking about? I don't see anything.
You've come a long way, my friend. No, well, but like Ross has come into his own, and Ross is somebody who has always had an incredible level of self-assurance and self-confidence in almost every situation. It's one of the things that I have always admired the most about him.
Very, very nice, SJ. You're a stud as well.
No,
look at my
mean it.
Look at this glow.
Look at
you
that
see
jawline.
this glow? Look at the glow.
I think it's just feeling your best self. It's finding the style that works for you, that really speaks to who you are, and not saying I'm doing this because somebody else did this.
Yeah. I think this will be a summer of me coming into my own and being alone for, the first time in like 5 or 6 years.
It's good to be alone.
Yeah.
Summer of Maxine.
Summer of Maxine.
Yeah.
Summer of George.
Maxine summer.
The summer of George.
I told my therapist the other day, I was like, this is going to be my silly girl summer. I'm going to get sillier and hotter. And she said, what does that mean? And I said, I'll tell you next session.
Yeah.
But when I find out, I'll tell you.
There's a tapping into yourself that feels really good when you actually strike the main vein. And I don't think you always get it right the first time. I think that's why you see people that are like, oh, that was the time that I cut my hair and dyed my tips blonde. And that was my tomboy phase. And people just try different things until you really find something that's like, no, this is who I am.
Yeah.
Saw a very simple meme the other day that just cracked me up. I'm going to quit my job to focus on summer. That's just great. Doesn't summer require its own set of focus? It really does.
Yeah.
If you really want to nail it, Maxine,
I got to quit.
get rid of the job.
No.
Okay, we got to finish this episode.
Yeah. My dad's going to be pissed. All right, cool. So what else do we want to say about this? We got I think we're setting up Ralphie as a really bad dude. And in this installment of Machete Order, I think we're building sympathy for Tony. You know, we wish Tony killed Ralphie at the end of this. We're rooting for Tony, even though we've seen time and again how bad he is. And I think that's effective storytelling, and we're building something now.
Yeah. It seems like we're really looking at the level of morality for the mobsters.
Yeah, there's levels of it.
There's levels of it. Unfortunately, in the mob, Tony's a quote-unquote good guy compared to Ralphie, who's going around laughing at women, getting beat up, and almost killing Tracy and being just like a really terrible guy. But when everyone comes out, including Tony and the other guys, they see what happens and they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Get him out here.
Yeah.
But they don't stop him when they see it happening. Or who's the person who owns the strip club?
So Sylvia owns the strip club. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's still kind of down there with that moral compass of he goes to Ralphie's place and picks Tracy up and also
belong
beats
to
her.
me,
Yeah.
he says.
Yeah. So he is, not, I don't think as bad as Ralphie, but still his morality is not great. But he's, there's a spectrum of how bad you can be in the mob.
I wish Syl didn't slap her.
God,
I love Syl.
Yeah.
It's just, you like him a little less after that, right?
I mean, they're all horrible to women, and they're horrible to women in different ways. And I think that's an important part of, just understanding that these guys aren't good guys. And there are levels. There's grays to morality. There's grays of evil. There's grays of goodness and virtue.
Mm-hmm.
But they definitely have different standards for how they think about Meadow versus Tracy. And they abuse them in different ways, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he treats her, like a piece of property. Yeah. And I should say, makes you like him a lot less. My goodness.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an uplifting discussion.
Yeah.
We've been all over the map this episode. What should I watch next? Tell me.
Yeah.
Well, I've got one more thing. So,
Okay.
you got to love. So the song is Living on a Thin Line by the
Yes.
Kinks.
I was going to say something about this.
Does it not remind you, and maybe I'm dating myself here, but old high school hockey games? Like it's almost like a song that the hockey team would come out to.
It's a great song. And
It's a
they
great
play
song.
it three
It's just
different
like
times.
there's a build up to it.
Yeah.
And
It's a great song. It's got like that, in that 90s rock ballad, like Led Zeppelin style. And it almost plays like a dirge, especially at the end where they're going through. And again, we've brought this up with Georgie, talking to the same strippers about the same things and the same deal. And just on and on life goes. It's the same as it ever was. And it's a little depressing in that way.
It is.
And
it's depressing. Yeah.
I think it's the struggle of breaking out of the cycle. And we're going to get into the second half of the show now, where I'm very excited for the episodes from here on out. I think we're going to get a little bit more uneven with how we chop things up. You're not going to just keep going in sequential order from here on out, but we really will be getting more into what I think are the classic episodes of the show. And this series really comes into its own as it gets into the back half of season 3 and then on. Ross, anything you want to say as we get into this like second half?
No, I'm excited for what's to come.
Yeah. All right. Well, we can cut that part out then.
Yeah. I had nothing good there.
So as we look to
Whatever SJ recommends, I'm in. No, I'm joking.
I appreciate that.
One recommendation.
I will say,
no, you recommend it, and then I'll hate on at least one of the recommendations as I did today.
I defended University. You guys came in being like, why was that in there? And
Ross Melton, biggest hater.
Go ahead. I will say we've gotten a lot of criticism. I have personally gotten a lot of feedback, I would say, about how we handle this podcast and different things we could be doing better. My own mother said that I talk too much about myself.
Wait, we have to pause.
Thanks, Ma.
My glasses just snapped.
What?
Look.
What? That's weird. Okay, that's a sign we have to get out of here.
Devastating.
Okay.
All right.
We'll fix that later.
We'll fix it in post.
God.
Sorry.
All right.
All right. Well, without further ado, it's been quite a do about nothing.
I want to see that on camera after this. Nicole sent it to me. Okay.
So as we get into session 6 of Machete Order, we are going to watch. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
All right. Season 3, episode 11, Pine Barrens. Season 3, episode 12, Amour Fou. Forgive me, I don't speak French. AMORFOU, Amour Fou. And season 3, episode 13, An Army of One.
Okay, sequential order.
Back to back to back.
Yeah.
Classics.
There you
Closing
go.
out season 3.
Anything I should know before going into these episodes?
Pine Barrens is considered by a lot to be the best episode of The Sopranos.
And that's episode 11.
That's the first one you're going to watch. We're going to be meeting a couple of new characters that you will need to know about. Gloria Trillo is going to be Tony's new Guma.
Okay.
He met her actually through Dr. Melfi's practice.
Interesting.
Yeah, and she's a Mercedes car dealer. I'll leave it at that. You are also going to see couples counseling with Dr. Melfi, which I think is...
That happens in this episode, or episode 6.
Okay. Then, all right, we can edit that out too. Less time on the episode. That's all you need to know is Gloria. Gloria is now on the scene.
Yeah.
Semi-relevant character. Okay. We'll probably see her again. We might not, but yeah. Happy watching.
Okay. Then report back next episode, hopefully with my glasses that are fixed. I can't believe that happened on camera. That's crazy. Hold on. Anyways, good episode, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We said we'd be loose.
Okay. We'll report back. We'll report back next week. All right. Bye.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Machete Order. If you like what we're doing, give us a rating and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. Be sure to subscribe.
If people don't support this thing, it might not make it.
Special thanks to Brother Sal for providing us with our theme song, I Will Tell. And thank you to producer Nicole Kemet and our guest host, Ross. Do you agree with SJ and Ross's episode picks? Am I not appreciating the story the way I should? Let us know on our Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter. We will not call it X, at Machete Order. We'll talk about it, or because this is a show about Italians, we'll argue about it.
Affangaul!
Be sure to tell your friends.
Until next time, I'm SJ Petaruti.
I'm Maxine Philivong, and this has been a Rotary Studios experience.